So I wrote to Bjarne. I said, Bjarne, what does clean code mean to you? And he said, and this is very typical of Bjarne Stroustrup. He said, I like my code to be elegant and efficient. And then he said this, clean code does one thing well. One thing well. Now, this one thing idea has been around in software for 40 years or more. People are always writing about how a function should do one thing and one thing well. It's a very, very old idea, and Stroustrup echoes it here. Grady Booch, the chief scientist at Rational, he wrote a book in 1988 called Object-Oriented Software Design with Applications. Anybody read that book? 1980s, late 80s? Do we have anybody who was born then? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so that's fine. Fascinating book, very early book on object-oriented design. Grady Booch is also the first person, I believe, to have the title chief scientist. I think he invented that. And Rational said, yeah, you can be the chief scientist, that's fine. And ever since then, everybody's wanted to be a chief scientist at some company somewhere. So I asked Grady, Grady, what's clean code? He said, clean code is simple and direct, fine. And then he said this, clean code reads like well-written prose. Have you ever read code that read like well-written prose? And let's go to Michael Feathers. Michael Feathers. I wrote to Michael, I said, hey, Michael, what's clean code? And he said, clean code always looks like it was written by someone who cares. What a lovely statement. That's a good attitude right there. Clean code always looks like it was written by someone who cares. When's the last time you read a module and your thought as you were reading that module was, the author cared about me? The author cared about everybody else who was going to be reading that code. When's the last time you had that experience? The author of this code cared about me. Very interesting. And by the way, it brings up a fascinating point. What's your job? You may think that your job is to get code to work. That's not your job. That's only half of your job. And it's the least important half of your job. The more important part of your job is that you must write code that other people can maintain, can use, can make work. If you hand me code that works perfectly, but I can't understand it, then as soon as the requirements change, that code is useless. On the other hand, if you give me code that does not work, but I can understand it, I can make it work. It is much more important that your peers be able to understand the code you write than that the computer can understand the code that you wrote. It is more important to communicate with your peers using a programming language than it is to communicate with the computer. Because if you do that well, somebody will make it work. The last one, Ward Cunningham. Who knows who Ward Cunningham is? Has anybody heard the name? You know who that is, huh? A few of you do. So, no, you'll know who he is as soon as I tell you. He's the guy who invented the wiki. Who's used the wiki? Everybody puts their hand up. Okay, good. Ward Cunningham is the guy who invented the wiki. He invented the wiki out of 19 lines of Perl in 1990 something or other. Put it up on the website. By the way, that very first wiki is still alive. You can get to it if you want to. The URL is c2.com. The letter C and the digit 2.com. That is the very first wiki ever. It's still there, and by the way, it's full of fascinating stuff. You'll see all kinds of design pattern stuff and extreme programming stuff and agile stuff because it was there at the beginning. And I asked Ward, what's clean code? And he said this, you know you're working on clean code when each routine you read turns out to be pretty much what you expected. When's the last time you read code, and as you're reading it, it was pretty much what you expected? You're reading along and you're going, yeah, yes, yep, 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 yes, yep, yep. When's the last time you had that experience? What he's saying is, no WTFs per minute, 0. Clean code is no surprises, no WTFs. Everything is pretty much what you expected. That's good, clean code.